let's talk about DevOps architecture, because I want to show you every setting of TeamCity and the build configuration and how to chain builds together to make an entire DevOps pipeline. But I want to make it clear what we're going for here. What we're going for here is an environment where changes can flow all the way through to production. And so we have a place where we work on code, and then we have the build server kind of at the front, watching the code repository, whether it's a feature branch or whether it's the master branch or the main branch, and kicking off the first build. Okay, so the TeamCity, the build agents, they jump into action and run and spin up automatically, and then they produce a release candidate. A release candidate is a set of deployable packages. And of course, in the .NET world, this means they're NuGet packages. Can you use zip files? Yes, but NuGet packages are just so good and so easy to use. So we like using NuGet packages, which essentially are zip files with just a little bit of variation. So we produce NuGet packages that are our release candidate. One NuGet package for the web application, one NuGet package for the database, one NuGet package for our full system acceptance tests. But together they are one release candidate because they have that same version number. Okay, and then we put them in a NuGet server. Well, lo and behold, TeamCity has a built-in NuGet server. Now, if you already have a different internal NuGet server, and if you've offloaded that, by all means, use your NuGet server. And of course, you have tons of options for where you might want the NuGet server to be. But unless you've already created another NuGet server, then just put in a ticket and ask JetBrains to enable the NuGet hosting on your cloud instance, and you're off to the races. All right. So now that we have a release candidate, the next step is to deploy. Now, remember, if you've never read the actual book on continuous integration, go read it. It was written in 2006. What is that? 17 years ago. Okay. But it's still, the pattern has held true. The book is literally called Continuous Integration, published in 2006. And even the 2009 book entitled Continuous Delivery didn't redefine continuous integration. It just added on deployment patterns. So the continuous integration book, way back when the pattern was defined, after 6 or 8 years of the industry kind of haggling and arguing and sharing at conferences on what it is and how to do it properly, we've got 3 key stages defined when it comes to continuous integration. The first stage is your private build, called the commit stage in the book. And your private build actually runs without any build server. It runs on the engineer's workstation. And that's why you need a private build script. That's why you need a build script to power your private build locally. So locally, we create the database schema. Locally, we do compilation. Locally, we run unit tests and integration tests and whatever checks you can fit on the local machine in a reasonable period of time. And that's the private build. Then you know that it's healthy to actually share the code with the team. Because if you broke something, it's just a waste to even push it up and share it with your team. So you share it with your team, whether it be a direct commit on master or whether it's a pull request of your feature branch. And then the integration build kicks off. That's the second stage of continuous integration. And the build server is the brain that kind of kicks in and says, oh, there's something for me to do. And so that build script that powers your private build, it is the core, the nucleus of your integration build as well. And your integration build is going to have additional steps, but it's going to have the same steps as what your private build had. So that's why every application needs some sort of build script, because they're shared between the private build and the integration build. And so that's the integration stage. And then the third stage of continuous integration is the first deployment. We don't know that we have successfully integrated new changes unless we actually put the application on a production-like environment and actually start it up and actually exercise it and make sure it still generally works. Not exhaustive testing, but just make sure it generally works. That's the third stage of continuous integration. So when you're thinking about your own implementation of continuous integration, ask yourself, do we have those 3 stages? From the time that continuous integration was coined as a pattern, those are the 3 stages. So it's important that you have those. The third stage of deploying to production-like environment, that's what we represent here. We like to call it the TDD environment. Some people call it a dev environment. But either way, it's an environment where we do not do manual testing on it. It only exists to be created, have a new release candidate deployed to it, run some types of checks to make sure that the application generally works and starts up appropriately, and then destroy the environment. Now we have a release candidate that we have some confidence in, can progress to another environment. Of course, the next natural stage is to put it on an environment where somebody can do some manual testing. And then after that, we at some point push it out to our customers, hopefully very soon. And so TeamCity's role in that is to orchestrate that process. And one of the pieces of orchestration is to integrate with Octopus Deploy, our automated deployment tool, to do the configuration into Azure or whatever our environment is, get the application stood up. And then when it finishes, especially in our TDD environment, our test automation environment, then TeamCity, again, a build server technology, runs automated tests. And we'll see, I'll show that to you, running automated tests against the release candidate of our application that was just deployed to our test automation environment. All right, so there's a lot more information on this DevOps architecture diagram. We have this in a large format, a DevOps architecture poster. If you do not have already from previous webinars and talks, a high resolution copy of our large format DevOps architecture poster, then just send me an email and I'd be happy to send it over to you. And you can take it to a print shop and get it printed out. And actually, you can't see it quite a bit, but that poster behind me, if you see the camera, that is a fully printed out architecture poster.